Prison, or as I like to call it, big boy timeout, is a terrible place to go. No one wants to go to prison, so obviously what we should do is abolish all prisons. It is the only logical solution for such a heinous crime of throwing people into a cage. Today we're going to be looking at TikToks of very qualified, I will say very qualified people on this subject, and we're going to get their takes on it, and we're just going to see what they're thinking, because really the best minds on the internet are on TikTok to educate us about these subjects. So let's dive into it. Let's see what they have to say.
I have had so many people tell me not to talk about politics just to help my business grow, right? But today I'm going to talk about why I am a prison abolitionist. Aside from the obvious fact that prison is modern day slavery, prison does not rehabilitate, prison does not make our streets safer. If we want a happier, healthier, safer society, we don't need to be threatening prison for bad behavior, for harmful behavior. Also, why are people being imprisoned for non-violent offenses?
True. The last time I tried to sell guns to a teenager, the government was very upset at that. And it's like, I'm not even committing any violence here. I'm just giving a kid a gun. And he wants the gun. I don't know why I can't sell a gun to an 8-year-old. It's like, dude, they'll throw you in prison for that, which I think that's crazy, dude.
Anywho, if we want a safer society, we need rehabilitation. We need connection. We need resources. Because why are we putting people in prison for mental health issues? Why don't we give them the resources to get better? Why are we putting
Don't you have to put them into an institution until they get stabilized so then you can give them the resources? I think usually that's how that works. I do know sometimes, well, a lot of times they do end up in prison. So this is probably one of the few things I do agree with. There is a lot of people on the streets who are having mental health issues, who just need to go to a mental health facility. Prison is not where they need to be. The problem is, unfortunately, is usually once these people are back on their medication, they get released. And then once they're released, they stop taking their medication because they feel like, I'm better. I don't want to take this medication. It makes me feel bad. Then they're back on the street. Cycle continues. So collectively, I feel like people just throw them in prison because it's cheaper, which is actually really sad. But I feel like that's what society's decided to do. It's really a stain on America at the moment.
putting people in prison for drug abuse? Why are we putting people in prison for stealing whenever they were trying to feed themselves or their families?
Because you can't steal. It doesn't matter what the justification is, you cannot steal from others. It's straightforward. And a lot of the theft nowadays is not because people are stealing for food. It's not. If you don't have enough food, there's SNAP benefits. The government will keep you fed. No one in the United States is dying of starvation. That's not real. They're stealing because organized crime has essentially made it very easy, or they have a drug addiction that they're trying to feed. There's plenty of research on this. People are not stealing because they're barely struggling to get by. They're stealing because they either want consumer goods or they want goods that they can easily resell to maintain a lifestyle above what they currently have. But they're not dying from starvation.
Prison does not solve anything, it simply creates a threat. And this threat is actually not reducing crime. But what
That's true. When you have a serial killer going around killing people and actively hurting people, when you put him in prison, it actually doesn't stop him. Trust me on that.
does reduce crime? Resources, money, food, water, shelter, time in nature, therapy, rehabilitation centers for people with mental health.
You hear that, guys? If you just have enough money, food, water, housing, therapy, you'll be fine. Rich people have never committed crimes. So if we just make everybody rich and fulfill all their needs, they'll never commit a crime. That's never happened. Rich people are totally fine and they commit no crimes. Obviously, that's an exaggeration. They commit less crime, but there's still crime. And that's why we still punish people. Even if you're rich, you can still go to jail.
Issues and drug abuse that actually work, not the AA 12 steps. I'm sorry. We don't need a threat of abuse to be better people. We need to be empowered to make better decisions. And I think that saying this on the internet is only going to attract more of the right people who want to work with me.
I guess. I don't know. I don't want to work with her.
So if you are looking for healing and liberation within yourself and within your communities in a way that is outside of the box of the colonizer's mindset that we have all been raised to believe, I'm your girl. Give me a follow or shoot me a DM.
What? The colonizer thing was a little weird. Just out of curiosity, I was like, man, what were the justice system in the United States with Native Americans before, the colonizers arrived? Those poor, poor, evil colonizers. So I pulled up just a couple examples on History Reddit. It's the most reliable source that I know of. Obviously, there's a ton of different Native American tribes. They quoted just some. Probably not all of them are documented, but it's the best we got to work off of. But let's see these criminal justice systems that are so much better than the colonial ones. Let's start with the Wendat. The crimes usually committed: murder, theft, witchcraft, and treason. Here I'll just summarize. Murder was resolved by the exchange of a certain number of gifts, each valued equivalent to a beaver robe. So, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I like this. This means if you can kill somebody, and if you just give them enough beaver robes, you're fine. So, essentially, financial compensation. If you're rich enough, you can murder. This is restorative justice, guys. The colonials took this from us. Let's get out there. Let's get our way of living back. All right. Murder was resolved by the number of gifts. We went over that. 30 for a male victim, 40 for a female victim. Ooh, not very egalitarian there. The feminists are not going to love that one. The older custom of revenge killings was seen as a greater crime than the original murder and absolved the murderer's clan from needing to pay anything. So I guess, you just kill somebody back. So if you commit murder and then that family murders you back, they're like, all right, even Stevens. We love it. This is a good justice system, guys. We shouldn't go through a trial. We should just be like, hey, you killed our boy. We're just going to go shoot your guy. Family feuds have never started from that. That's never happened. That's never led to more crime. So don't worry. That's colonial misinformation. What other crimes do we have here? Lesser injuries were dealt with in the same way, the number of gifts being far less than murder. I would hope so. The punishment for theft involved the members of the victim's longhouse being allowed to take whatever they desired from the thief's longhouse. So essentially, eye for an eye. We literally have gone back in time to the Hammurabi Code, which is kind of cool because if you steal a Coke can from me, I should be able to steal your most valuable possessions. Those accused of witchcraft, remember, not convicted, we just got to accuse you of witchcraft, would be judged by a secret council of elders who could authorize their execution. Man, the modern day justice system really dropping the ball here. We haven't prosecuted anybody for witchcraft in forever. And it's kind of fucked up. We all know there's witches out there. They're getting powerful, guys. We gotta take them down. But remember, that's just one tribe. Let's just go to another one. Maybe they're even better on all of this stuff. We're just going to go to the next one. I'm going to butcher this name. The Haudenosaunee. I'm just going to call them the H-Boys. The H-Boys system was similar to that of the Wendat, with some differences. Murder was typically resolved with similar exchanges of gifts. Man, the rich people always got it good, no matter what time frame you were in. But the murderer's community might refuse to pay these on behalf of the murderer if he did not confess or atone for his crime. Murderers love confessing, so this probably would never happen, because why would the murderer not confess? Such as being a repeat offender, which would usually cause the murderer to flee from justice. Nice, don't even do anything. The victim's family could then pursue the murderer's execution by either performing it themselves or acquiring a sort of bounty hunter to do it for them. Oh man, what a great system of justice. We're just, man, you know what helps murder? Murdering somebody else. Works every time. A suspected witch could be killed if caught in the act, but otherwise the witch would be tried before a public council. Okay, we're doing some good here. We're still killing witches, but we're at least giving them a trial. A confession and a pledge to abandon witchcraft would allow the witch to go free with merely a loss of social standing. Oh my gosh, I don't know why anybody wouldn't say they're like, oh, JK, I'm not a witch. I'll never do witchcraft again. Otherwise, the trial continued, and if he was found guilty, the witch would be executed. Man, we are rocking and a rolling with these witches, dude. And then the H boys also have treason. Treason is defined in their constitution as neglecting or violating the law of the Constitution in such a way that threatens the integrity of the Confederacy, aka crimes against your tribe. First time offenders received a warning and are to be driven away on their second offense. This is also another good one that a lot of criminal justice systems used historically is you were kicked out, you were abandoned. But the problem is now that every place has a country, where are you going to kick a citizen of your country to, especially a criminal? You can't just throw them into, if it's the United States, Mexico, or Canada. They'll be like, hey, this is your guy, your problem. You can't just exile someone. The English did that to Australia, but Australia is not taking any more exiles. They're actually pretty hard to get into. So, man, the colonial system of justice is just not as good as these systems. Obviously, we can't exile people. But we're not killing witches either. I mean, we should be executing all these witches. And I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, this lady might be seen as a witch, as a shamanic practitioner. But you know what? What do I know? Let's go to the next one. Let's see what they have to say about the criminal justice system and abolishing prisons.
This is a great question. I have 2 points in response.
The question is, one thing I don't understand about an abolitionist position is this. What do you do with people who serially commit violent acts? If attempts at intervention fail, what happens? So essentially, if you have a serial killer and he keeps killing and you're like, hey man, we gave you a house, food, and water. Can you please stop killing? And he goes, no, killing's lit. I love this shit. I ain't stopping. I ain't never gonna quit. What do?
First, for those who are new here, my name is Abby Henson. I'm an abolitionist and a criminal justice professor at Arizona State University. The first is just a provocation to realize that we've never existed in modern day society without prisons, meaning that we don't know if there was a new system in which people were actually getting their needs met with resources and services, if there would still be people serially committing harm. Because what we know
That's true. Once again, rich people have never serially committed crimes. There's no cases of rich people serially committing sexual crimes. Never. It's never happened. Rich people have never serially committed crimes. Ever. They have all their needs met, but she is right. We don't know. It's the verdict's out on that one.
know is that people in prison have the highest amount of need. Those with mental health disorders make up 56.2% of the prison population compared to only 11% in the general population. The median annual income prior to incarceration is about $19,000, which is 41% less than non-incarcerated people of the same age. 15% of the prison population experienced homelessness in the year prior to their incarceration.
Who would think? People who are criminals who cause chaos everywhere don't make a lot of money. To make money, you usually have to work with people and be able to sustain a job. And if you're committing crimes around them, they probably don't want to work with you. And then if you end up at a doctor's office, they'll probably say you're crazy or you have some sort of mental health issue because you're committing all of these crimes. So it's kind of like a selection bias here, but I digress.
Compared to only 2% in the general population. And those in prison have higher rates of PTSD, exposure to violence, HIV, tuberculosis, asthma, and cancer compared to those in the general population. So if this new system was able to...
If people in prison have a higher rate of cancer, does that mean the world is giving them a message and trying to cleanse itself of crime? What does it mean?
To actually address these social issues that people are experiencing that typically end up with them in prison, would we actually have people committing serial harm? Now, for the sake of this, let's just say that there are people within the new system that are serially committing harm. Just because we're advocating for the eradication of prisons does not mean that we're advocating for the eradication of either incapacitation or accountability. There are certainly individuals who, because of their state of need, would have to be removed immediately from their situation for the benefit of themselves and those around them. Where they would go is still up for question, but we can look towards the Norwegian model to see somewhere that's more human-centered and trauma-informed. The issue there, though,
You mean like prison? You mean like you would put them in prison?
is that those places are still under the pretense of prison, which most of society synonymizes with dangerousness. And that stigma is a huge detriment to the 95% of people who return home from prison. These are the important questions that abolition provokes. Can we recognize that our retributive system of punishment doesn't actually make us safer because it doesn't meet the needs of either those who have committed harm or those who have been harmed?
No, we can't. A lot of people in prison, if left out of prison, would commit more crimes and they would hurt the community. There's a reason why people are in prison. It's to protect the community from their acts, because the greatest predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Can we envision a system in which those who have both been victimized and those who have committed harm are humanized, have their trauma centered, and have their needs met? This is what we're talking about when we say abolish.
Yeah, but my need is to, like, the problem. This is so weird because, like, you'll still have criminals. Like, I get it. And some of this would help to reduce crime, but you still need prisons. And it doesn't solve a lot of things. Like, if some guy wants to, like, touch children, how are you going to meet his needs, right? You can give him therapy, but, like, just like if you are attracted to young children, just like if you're attracted to same sex, like, you can't change that. There is no therapy that fixes that. That's kind of how they're built. Like, you, for example, I'm a straight guy. You can't therapy me to be a homosexual man. There's no real evidence of that. Like, gay conversion therapy is not, it doesn't work. We've been shown that. And also, what do you do against people who commit terrorist acts? Like, for example, if I'm in the United States and I'm a Muslim and I commit a terrorist act against the United States because I believe they're funding the genocide in Gaza, what are you going to do? Stop the Gaza situation for me? Or are you just going to tell me, like, no, it's actually okay what's going on there. You're just misinformed. And then I'm, like, politically driven. Like, you can't stop me. I'm a weapon who I've already, like, I'm kind of a martyr at that point. Like, I'm going to keep doing violence until I feel like I'm happy. I'm essentially a warrior for my cause. Like, it won't stop any terrorism. Like, it's, the concepts here are very strange to me. I mean, you can reduce crime. Like, the higher someone's income is, the lower the amount of crime they'll create or they'll perpetrate. But it's not non-zero, okay? There's still plenty of criminals in very rich societies. There's still plenty of murder. There's still plenty of SA. There's still plenty of theft. Like, it still happens. You want to know what's funny? You want to know where there's not a lot of theft? Societies where theft is punished extremely harshly and where the enforcement is big. So there's a fun thing here that I want everybody to know about is a lot of people who commit crime do it kind of impulsively. And a lot of people also commit crime because you can commit crime for a while and not really get in trouble for it. So if I deal drugs, I get money, I get positive reinforcement. Dealing drugs made my life better. I'm going to keep doing it until something bad happens. And then when that bad thing happens, I'm like, oh, that might have been dumb. Or I'm like, I've dealt drugs for 20 years and only got caught once. Like, whatever, it's not that bad. Especially if you get a slap on the wrist, you're going to keep doing it. Think about how many times you've touched a hot stove. Every time you touch it, you get burned. You try and avoid it. You might do it just out of, like, not thinking and accidentally do it, but you will never purposefully touch a hot stove because it's going to burn you every single time. Crime is the same way. If every time someone stole something, they were immediately caught and punished for it, people wouldn't steal anything because they're like, well, there's no point in it. Like, I'm not getting any benefit. Like, even the person who was like, oh, well, I would have to steal to feed my family, they would know that, oh, if I steal something, I'm immediately punished. Like, it's just not even an option for them. I mean, they're making a case. They are. They're making their case. They're getting it done.
I'm going to answer this particular question because I think this is what people are actually interested when they ask, what about the insert plot from a Saw movie? But first I wanted to give a shout out to this person for actually doing the assigned reading. Thank you. Be like them. Now, as I said in my last video about this topic, abolitionists do believe in accountability, right? We're just pointing out that the current system doesn't achieve accountability, which is something that other people, maybe not you, but other people have deluded themselves into believing. So let's say we do live in a world.
I don't know how if you commit a crime and you get sent to prison, that's not accountability. I mean, they're literally like, you committed a crime, you don't get to have freedom, you're stuck in this prison cell. It's some form of accountability. Everybody will argue if it's too harsh or too light, but it is accountability.
World where people believe in holding bad people accountable instead of electing them to high office. Let's say we do live in a world where boys aren't taught that they're more important than girls. Let's say we lived in a world where people weren't shamed for seeking mental health support, where all of the resources that we're currently putting in our justice system aren't being pushed towards locking up octogenarians, and that our court systems aren't laid.
Oh my gosh. So why would you even make this argument? Like, the justice system is fair regardless of what age you are. You can't become so old that magically you aren't subject to the law. Like, you can't be so old that they're like, he's an old guy, he can steal, he's an old guy, he can murder. Come on, man, he lived this long. Let him do what he wants. Let him, dude, he punched you in the face. Come on, he's old, dude. Let him get away with it. What's wrong with you?
With bias or getting things wrong. Because mind you, those are the short-term goals of abolitionists, right? But let's say all of that is done, and then we've gotten rid of prisons. What's next? Personally, my answer to that is that the decision goes back into the hands of victims and the community or communities that are affected. If we do establish that a harm has happened, surely the victim should have the number one say for what they need to move forward. And we're...
I can't see anything going wrong with this at all. There's no way someone who just had a crime committed against them is going to be super level-headed in how the criminal is sentenced. No problems here.
We're assuming that victims aren't automatically going to go to prison as the thing that just happens to exist as what they need. Because, as I said, these are long-term goals. These are like the last steps in the abolitionist kind of agenda. Not to mention that even in today's society, I think prison and prosecution and all of those things are probably actually not super... Like, victims probably aren't actually super keen to go down those paths anyway. Maybe the victim wants to go to therapy, and maybe the person who harmed them could pay for that. Maybe the victim wants what happened to them to be publicized, so that people know about it, and that there are kind of natural social consequences. Which is something we're kind of shit at today, right? We don't believe people when they're...
Imagine someone beats the shit out of you, and they're like, yeah, but I mean, he'll pay for your therapy. Like, why do you want to punish this guy? Come on, man. Just get some therapy. You're, like, kind of overreacting. He just beat the hell out of you. Like, you'll be fine, dude. Get over it.
Tell us they've been hurt. We put all our faith into a justice system that we know is bad to prove it. And that's the kind of number one thing that abolitionists are pushing against right now, is all this faith that we're putting in the justice system. Again, those are the short-term goals. Abolishing prison is the last step. And after that, the world's really your oyster, The victim can choose whatever will be the most helpful to them. They can be creative with it. They don't have to be bound to this one thing that society told them is what they want, which may or may not actually be the thing that they want. And if they want something that is really, really, really harsh, then the community can kind of act as a check and balance on it. They can be like, well, no, this would actually tear us apart if we were to, I don't know, all go and become vigilantes or something. Like, there's a...
So the community, you mean like a formal justice system that makes sure if you commit a crime, everybody's treated equally? So we set sentencing limits on every crime so that way people don't get crazy? Ooh, we're slowly clawing our way back to the original system. Okay.
Degree of dialogue that has to happen around it. But yeah, I think that is where a lot of abolitionists are probably coming from. And I think that, like, if you are thinking that none of this sounds, like, harsh enough, and particularly if you also haven't actually been a victim of a crime that you consider really, really egregious, I would also challenge you to have a think about, like, where your desire to punish people is coming from. Like, what you think is fair or rational doesn't necessarily line all that much up with research, nor does it reflect the actual desires of a lot of other victims out there. Like, is it about having a, really clear-cut 2D mutually exclusive framework of good and bad where you're very clearly in the good camp and can never fall into the bad camp? Even though, the government is changing the goalposts on that every day. But yeah, is it a desire to be in this camp and then you can legitimately do to the bad camp what they did to others, but you can do that in the name of being good?
Yeah, but that's why we invented prison, right? Like he's saying the eye for an eye punishment is bad. That's why we made prisons, so we don't do eye for an eye punishment. We just send them away from society where they can't commit harm against the community that's considered innocent. Like, bro, you're like kind of arguing for prisons here.
Even though you're doing the same thing.
What? That was a good one. TikTok is full of very scholarly people. That's why I like it. That's why I browse it. It really, it's just eye-opening experiences here from top to bottom.
Obviously, prisons are like modern slavery and they're bad, but like.
The reason why we've heard this twice today is because the 13th Amendment allows forced labor if you are incarcerated. But there is no amendment for community service, which a lot of prison abolitionists, by the way, are fans of community service as a punishment, which, guess what, is forced labor. So I don't know why they make this argument, but it's a fun one. It pops up a lot, dude.
Like, I don't want all the PDFs and murderers walking around freely. That was me like 3 years ago, but as a policy student, I have a better idea of how it would actually accomplish prison abolition. Universal healthcare would immediately give so much financial relief to so many families. For our prisons are our largest mental health facilities in the United States. Subsidized housing or guaranteed housing for all. Better maternal care and parent.
Who's committing a crime because they don't have maternal care? I would love to know who's like, there's no one to take care of my child. That's why I had to beat the crap out of this guy. I had to shoot this guy. I had to rob here because, like, no one's taking care of my kid. So now I have to go harm others, obviously. You guys just don't understand where I'm coming from.
To leave in the United States, increasing the minimum wage so that it's actually, like, livable.
2% of the American population gets the minimum wage. That wouldn't affect much of anything.
Free access to higher education. While all of this seem unrelated, imagine like you have 10 floors of a prison, and with each social policy that is enacted, it will close off one of these floors because people that were criminalized for those specific reasons, like substance use or whatever, that will no longer apply. And with each policy enacted, you end up closing, like, let's say 9 out of the 10 floors, and the one floor that's left, we can reimagine what rehabilitation accountability look like. And a big discussion to have on a community level is redefining what crime is. Because for so many people, I don't think they realize, like, in the United States, like, everything's a crime. Like, being homeless is a crime in some places. Feeding the homeless is a crime. So, like, if there is no actual harm done, why do we call it a crime?
This is what I'm talking about. So, like, she's saying, obviously, if you give people a ton of welfare and you meet a lot of their, like, basic needs, crime goes down, which is true. Crime goes down, but it's not non-zero. You're not going to get 90% reduction in crime, unfortunately. And then the other thing is she's like, well, we can abolish prisons if we just make less things a crime. But those things are crime for a reason, right? Because they're a nuisance to the public. So if there is a public park that we all pay taxes for and we all want to go to that public park and literally it turns into people just living there, that's not fair. If I am a rich person and I decide I want to camp in a public park, right in the middle of the public park, right in front of the pond, and I kind of make a camp big enough where you don't have access to the public park, you would say, hey, that person needs to be arrested. They're probably not going to go to jail for that. They're probably like fine you and then tell you can't go back. But if you are homeless, you can do that. Like, essentially, the problem is the law is supposed to be equal. Ideally. Obviously, it will never be perfectly equal, but we are all the law, right? There's a reason Lady Justice is blind. You can't just say, oh, since you're homeless, you get to commit these certain crimes. And since he has a house, he can't commit these crimes. Right? That's why homelessness is a crime. It's not a crime to not have a home. It's a crime to, like, just camp out in some area that's public property, preventing other people from having access to that property. Just like if I am not homeless and I don't know, decide I want to have a barbecue out there and I block people access to the sidewalk, like, you can't do that. It's public property. That is kind of the issue. Man, we're running into the real scholars today, guys. The real scholars. But she's studying it, so she'll hopefully run into that indigenous justice system, because she didn't even talk about witchcraft, and it's kind of a problem.
Before I take you on this thought experiment with me, I need you to know this is purely hypothetical. I am somebody who identifies as a prison abolitionist. If you don't know what that is, pause here and go look it up. But in very layman's terms, what that means is I believe that the prison industrial complex only exists as a way for those in power to continue to exploit those who they do not want to pay for their labor, right? If you are unfamiliar with the 13th Amendment, go look it up right now. I know I'm making you look up so much stuff, but did you go look it up? If you did, I'm sure you saw that the 13th Amendment abolished slavery and indentured servitude, except as punishment for a crime. Right? So when you think about it like that, it makes sense that the United States is the largest prison industrial complex in the world, meaning as far as countries go, we have the most prisoners out of any other country. Because the United States never actually made slavery illegal. They just shifted their focus from exclusively black people to now anyone convicted of a crime. That's when we saw a rise in things like black codes, which essentially made it illegal for black people to exist. This is why I don't understand.
Damn, I didn't know you couldn't exist as a black person. That's crazy, dude. It's illegal to exist. Sorry, guys. They're all coming for you now.
Understand why poor white people are racist, right? Like, as a trailer trash white folk, most of the things that negatively affect us as poor white people were originally created to harm black and brown people first, to exploit those groups of people, and then they've just sort of bled over into our communities as well. We would have better luck if we were
I like how she didn't give any examples of that. Like, I was like what?
linking up with the people who were affected by the same shit that we were, but racism is a hell of a mental illness. What can I say? I also believe that crime is largely a social construct, and my evidence for things like this would be the difference between you, your average Joe. If you go and steal $20 out of your till right now from whatever job you work at, or even if you go into a place you don't work at and you steal $20 from the till, there's a very good chance you will get arrested.
As you should. If I steal $20 from anybody, I should be punished for that. That's not a social construct. Like, what? What?
You will face some sort of consequences. But wage theft, employers stealing from their employees, is the second largest culprit of theft from the American.
So once again, she's talking about, right? This is the problem with crime that a lot of people don't like. Everybody needs to be treated evenly. And a lot, by the way, if you look into this research, it's a little sketchy on how they calculated this wage theft. They were trying to pump up numbers pretty hard on this.
People behind who? You probably guessed it, the police. Corporations and cops account for way more theft from the American people than every single robbery or burglary in the United
She quoted wage theft here, but she said cops. And cops are seizing property from criminals. But I don't... And then once again, you're going to get this from a lot of like very, I don't know what I would say, politically motivated organizations that just do whatever it takes to pump up numbers.
United States combined. This is a wealth transfer from your average person to the elites. We've been force-fed pro-police propaganda our whole life that so many people don't question it, but the police have never been around to protect. Never. Never, never, never. Maybe we'll do another video about the...
That's correct. Police have never protected anybody from any crimes at all. They don't arrest any murderers. They don't go to any home invasions. If you want to see what the police are doing, there's a great YouTube channel. Oh my God, you guys should check it out, called Police Activity. And you'll see that the police are literally gunning it down in the streets from absolute insane people all the time. But yeah, the police are there to enforce the law. So I don't know how you could enact any change if you don't have the police. You have to have some sort of police force if you want to have laws. So I don't know why she's like so anti-police here, because I'm sure this woman wants to enforce lots of different restrictions on people, as well as how she wants to regulate society. But how would you do that without a police force?
Original purpose of the police. But what this video is about, golly, it got away from me. Right, okay, but you think about the prison industrial complex as exploitable and cheap labor.
The prison system, some people do make money off the prison system, but overall the prison system costs money. It is not profitable. So I don't know where this comes from, where people are like, man, we need to imprison more people so we make more money. Maybe the private prisons will get that, but there's a fun thing that some states have determined to fix this problem, and you just pay the private prisons for full occupancy. So if I have a private prison and I pay it for full occupancy, well, interesting enough, then the incentives kind of flip, right? That prison wants to have as little prisoners as possible because they get paid for full occupancy. It's just like a hotel. If I can be paid for a full hotel, but there's no actual customers there, I can make more money. I mean, there's easy fixes for these, but I don't know. These people just ignore all of this.
And then you think about the way that Republicans are currently targeting specifically immigrants, specifically undocumented immigrants and queer people. And the talk about what these people are and the brand for them to all be considered criminals. This is intentional. This is to manufacture consent for them to round them up and put them in jail. Or the next logical
So she's saying to put them in jail to make money, but they want to deport them. And I don't know anybody who wants to like arrest like LGBTQ people. I don't think they're trying to arrest them. They just don't want them giving hormones to kids. That's like the big thing. Unless, I don't know. You guys in the comments, maybe I'm totally wrong there, but that's what I thought the general push was. I didn't know they wanted to like arrest immigrants. I thought they just wanted to deport them mostly.
escalation of American jails, which is these camps that places like Texas are offering land to the federal government to build. But anyway,
Oh, it even says, look, if you go, look, I'm going to go back. It says mass
But anyway,
deportations.
federal government.
Look, for mass deportations. Yeah, they just want them to go back, which is exile, which is non-colonial punishment. So we're back to the Native American style.
To build. But anyway, my hypothetical. If a large workforce is all that these people are looking for, would they not find it immediately if they started prosecuting sex crimes? If men started being prosecuted for rape in any sort of like notable way, you'd have it. You'd have your labor force. What's the reason why they don't? Well, I think we can thank Marjorie Taylor Greene for confirming what most of us already knew, which is that if they did start prosecuting the only crime that human beings can commit that is in no way, under any circumstances, ever excusable, if we started prosecuting those crimes at the rate which they should be, all of these conservative politicians would be in jail. And a good bit of the Democratic politicians would be in jail too.
The problem is, in the criminal justice system, you have to have beyond a reasonable doubt. And a lot of times, unfortunately, with sex crimes, they're very hard to prosecute. There's very little evidence. And you can't just trust all victims, because then, like, once again, why is it special for them that all of a sudden trust all victims? So I could be like, well, he punched me. And they're like, yeah, but you don't have any bruises on your face or any evidence. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to trust me, I'm a victim. Like, that is the issue with sex crimes. It's not that people don't want to prosecute them. It's that they're just so hard to prosecute because the evidence is like, a lot of times there's just not much evidence, which is why they don't get prosecuted that much. And a lot of people don't even want to bring it up because they're like, I don't even know how I would fight this in court.
A lot of the men that run our society, they would be the new workforce.
Wait a second. So the people who run society, so the people who have all the power, who are rich, are committing crimes? I thought if we gave people all their needs, they wouldn't commit crimes. This lady needs to talk with the earlier lady. We got a little bit of a dispute here in the prison abolitionist community.
And so that's why they don't prosecute rapists.
Yeah, but there shouldn't be any because the people who run the country are rich and have all their needs met. Oh, man. Oh, no. Well, very interesting video for you guys. I have more of these that I'm probably going to react to over the next couple of days. But I got to organize them a little bit. So yeah, what do you guys think? Should we abolish prison? Seems like a sweet idea. We need to decolonialize ourselves. Okay? The colonialization of America is what is wrong. We need to go back to earlier systems, and community service is wrong because that is slavery. You can't force someone to work for free. It's wrong. It's terrible. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe if you want prisons to go away. Like and subscribe if you love prisons. We love everybody here.